My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 52 years old, and I'm a senior financial analyst for a mid-sized corporation. I've spent decades poring over balance sheets, identifying risks, and forecasting futures, but nothing in my professional life prepared me for the day I saw my daughter's future, so carefully built, crumble into dust because of my own sister's malice. It was a Tuesday afternoon when the email arrived. Clara, my 26-year-old daughter, was sitting at my kitchen island, a pristine white envelope from the Metropolitan Museum of Art Fellowship Committee clutched in her trembling hand. Her dream, the prestigious curatorial fellowship she'd poured her soul into, was about to become real. She'd made it to the final round, the interviews had gone beautifully, and now, the official offer. But the email wasn't an offer. It was a terse, formal rejection, citing unforeseen integrity concerns that had come to light during the final review. Clara read it aloud, her voice cracking, then dissolved into gut-wrenching sobs. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from my younger sister, Brenda. Heard about Clara. Some opportunities just aren't meant to be. XOXO. The casual cruelty of it, the feigned sympathy, hit me like a physical blow. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. Brenda had done this. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that her actions would have consequences far beyond what she could imagine. To understand the depth of Brenda's resentment, and why I eventually took the drastic steps I did, you need to know our family history. Brenda, 2 years my junior, had always been the charming, impulsive one, while I was the steady, responsible elder sister. Our parents, bless their hearts, loved us equally but saw our differences clearly. I excelled in school, went to college on scholarships, and built a career. Brenda flitted from one interest to another, always chasing the next big thing, always needing a bit of a bailout. She had a knack for spending money faster than she earned it, and a tendency to blame others when her ventures inevitably failed. When our parents passed away 5 years ago, there will reflected their understanding of our personalities. The bulk of their estate was split evenly, but with a crucial caveat: my portion was direct, while Brenda's was placed into a managed trust, with me as the sole trustee. The legal language was clear. I had broad discretion to disburse funds for her well-being, but also the responsibility to protect the principal from her impulsive decisions. Brenda saw it as a personal insult, a testament to my parents' lack of faith in her. "They think you're better than me, Eleanor," she'd seethed at the will reading, her eyes narrowed. They always did. I tried to explain it was about financial security, not favoritism, but she wouldn't hear it. Her resentment simmered just beneath the surface, occasionally boiling over into passive-aggressive comments about my control. Beyond the trust, I also held a significant personal stake in Brenda's life. 3 years prior, after her third failed business venture, she'd decided to open a small boutique selling artisanal jewelry and home decor she called Brenda's Baubles. She'd come to me, teary-eyed, promising this time it would be different. Against my better judgment, and out of a desperate hope for family harmony, I'd given her an interest-free loan of $75,000 to get started, drawn up with a simple repayment schedule. She'd made a handful of sporadic payments in the first year, then stopped entirely, always with an excuse: slow season, unexpected repairs, a new line of inventory she just had to have. The loan was now a silent, growing debt between us. Clara's devastated sobs that Tuesday afternoon were a sound I'll never forget. She had spent 5 years earning her master's in art history, interned at 3 different museums, and published 2 academic papers. This fellowship was the culmination of everything, a direct path into the competitive world of curatorial arts. "Mom," she choked out, handing me the rejection letter, "they said there were unsubstantiated claims about my academic integrity." Unsubstantiated? I've never cheated in my life. I read the email again, focusing on the careful wording. Unsubstantiated meant they couldn't prove it, but the seed of doubt had been planted, enough to cost her the opportunity. My mind immediately went to Brenda's text. It was too perfectly timed, too smug. I thought about the porcelain doll, a family heirloom that had belonged to my grandmother. It was a delicate, hand-painted piece, depicting a young girl with a basket of flowers, and it had always sat on the mantelpiece in our childhood home. Brenda had always loved it, coveted it, even, but our mother had always said it would go to the child who cherished it most, which, in her eyes, was me. After our parents passed, Brenda had somehow convinced me to let her have it, claiming it would bring her comfort. Irene beared her triumphant smile as she carefully wrapped it, a small, petty victory she'd savored. Now, I felt a similar sense of a small, petty victory being savored, but this time, the cost was Clara's future. I started digging. My financial analyst's brain, trained to spot anomalies and connect disparate pieces of information, shifted into high gear. I didn't have corporate resources, but I had a network. I called a former colleague who now worked in IT security, casually asking about ways to track anonymous emails, framing it as a hypothetical for a friend. He gave me some pointers, enough to send me down a rabbit hole. I also started making discreet calls to family members, fishing for any recent gossip about Clara or Brenda. My cousin, Sarah, mentioned Brenda had been particularly agitated a few weeks ago, complaining that Clara was getting too big for her britches and how some people just pull strings to get ahead. Sarah said Brenda had been strangely obsessed with Clara's fellowship application, asking probing questions about the process. Then, I found it. It wasn't a smoking gun in the legal sense, but it was enough for me. A burner email address, used to send a detailed, anonymous letter to the Met's Fellowship Committee, fabricating a story about Clara having plagiarized a minor paper during her freshman year of college, an incident that never happened. The IP address, when cross-referenced with public records and a bit of casual social media stalking, pointed directly to Brenda's home network. The language in the letter, the specific details twisted from innocuous family anecdotes, the thinly veiled resentment, it all screamed Brenda. She hadn't just sabotaged Clara, she had invented a scandal. I confronted Brenda a few days later, trying to keep my voice level, even though my hands were shaking. We were at her boutique, which looked increasingly dusty and forlorn, a testament to her dwindling passion and resources. Brenda, I began, holding up a printout of the email, did you send this to the Met? She stared at it, her face draining of color, then quickly composed herself. Eleanor, what is this nonsense? Of course not. Why would I do such a thing? She feigned hurt, then indignation. You always think the worst of me. You're just jealous of my creativity, my freedom, because you're stuck in your corporate cage. She even tried to turn it around, accusing me of always favoring Clara, of never supporting her own dreams. Some people just aren't cut out for the big leagues, Eleanor, she said, echoing her text, a smug, knowing look in her eyes. It was then I realized the depth of her vindictiveness. She hadn't just wanted to hurt Clara, she wanted to hurt me by hurting Clara, to diminish my pride in my daughter's accomplishments. The very next day, Brenda called, her tone abruptly shifting from indignant to desperate. Eleanor, I need an early disbursement from the trust, she pleaded, her voice tight. Brenda's baubles is really struggling. I have unexpected expenses, inventory I need to order, and the rent is due. Just a small advance, please. She also mentioned needing an extension on the loan repayment, as if it were a casual oversight. Her voice was thin, almost reedy, completely devoid of the bravado she'd shown the day before. Her financial strings were tightening, and she knew it. This was the moment of recognition for me. She was desperate, yes, but her desperation didn't excuse her cruelty. It only made her more dangerous. She saw my control over her finances not as a safety net, but as a weapon I refused to wield for her benefit, and she had retaliated by striking at my most vulnerable point, my child. I spent the next few weeks preparing, meticulously, like I would for a major corporate audit. I consulted a lawyer, a family friend named Richard, explaining my role as trustee and Brenda's recent actions. Richard confirmed my broad discretion as trustee. Eleanor, he explained, your primary duty is to manage that fund in Brenda's best interest. If her actions demonstrate a pattern of financial instability, or worse, malice that impacts her long-term well-being or the family's stability, you have the right, and frankly, the obligation, to restrict access. He also reviewed the loan agreement for Brenda's baubles, confirming the missed payments and my legal standing to demand repayment or pursue collection. He advised me to document everything. I gathered all my evidence, the rejection email from the Met, the fabricated anonymous letter with its traceable IP address, Clara's heartbroken testimony, Sarah's account of Brenda's jealous remarks, and the meticulously kept records of Brenda's consistent failure to repay her loan. I even went through Brenda's boutique's public financial filings, accessible due to the loan terms, and saw a clear pattern of dwindling sales and increasing debt. Her business was a sinking ship, and she was trying to bail it out with my parents' legacy, oblivious to the fact that her own actions were severing the very hand that fed her. The decisive action took place in Richard's office, a neutral territory. I invited Brenda and her husband, Mark, to what I framed as a discussion about her financial future. Mark, a quiet man who always seemed slightly overwhelmed by Brenda's theatrics, looked uncomfortable from the moment they walked in. Brenda, however, bristled with defensive energy, probably expecting another lecture about her spending. I didn't lecture. I laid out the evidence. I started with Clara's rejection letter, then presented the anonymous email, connecting it to Brenda's IP address. I showed the specific, fabricated details that only Brenda could have known and twisted. Brenda's face went from defiant to ashen. She stammered, she denied, she even tried to cry, but her performance was hollow. Mark, looking at the printouts, finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Brenda, is this true?" She couldn't meet his eyes. Then, I moved to the financial strings. "Brenda," I said, my voice calm, "as your trustee, I have a responsibility to protect your long-term financial stability. Your recent actions, coupled with the clear evidence of your business's distress and your consistent failure to meet your loan obligations, demonstrate a pattern of behavior that is detrimental to your own well-being and, frankly, our family's peace." I looked directly at her. "Effective immediately, I am freezing all discretionary disbursements from your trust fund. You will receive the minimum required by the trust for basic living expenses, but nothing more, until I am satisfied that you are capable of managing your finances responsibly and without resorting to malicious acts against your own family." Brenda gasped, her mouth opening and closing soundlessly. "You can't," she shrieked, finally finding her voice. "That's my money. My inheritance. You're just trying to punish me." "It is your inheritance, Brenda," I agreed, "and my responsibility is to ensure it lasts. Your boutique loan is also now due in full. Given your inability to make payments, I will be initiating formal collection procedures. If the loan is not repaid within 60 days, I will be forced to move to foreclose on the assets of Brenda's baubles." Mark put his hand on Brenda's arm, his face etched with disbelief and shame. Brenda erupted, screaming accusations, calling me a heartless tyrant, a control freak, a jealous sister. But her words had no power. Richard simply sat there, taking notes, a silent witness to her unraveling. I had seized her financial strings, not out of spite, but out of necessity. The aftermath was exactly as I'd predicted. Brenda tried to rally family support, painting me as the villain, but the truth about Clara's fellowship eventually leaked out. Sarah and other cousins, hearing the full story, began to distance themselves. Brenda's baubles, already teetering, couldn't survive the loan collection process. Within 3 months, the boutique closed, a casualty of Brenda's own recklessness and, ultimately, her malice. Mark, embarrassed and financially strained, took on a second job. Brenda was forced to live within the strict limits I had set for her trust, a constant, tangible reminder of her lost freedom. Our relationship, already fractured, was irrevocably severed. Clara, though heartbroken by the loss of the fellowship, slowly began to rebuild. I helped her secure a research assistant position at a smaller university, a less glamorous but still vital step in her field. It was a harder road, but she was resilient. She understood that while the original dream was gone, it wasn't the end. A few weeks after Brenda's boutique closed, I received an anonymous package. Inside was the porcelain doll, the one Brenda had so eagerly claimed from our parents' home. It was carefully wrapped, but the small note tucked inside simply read, "You win." The doll sat on my kitchen counter for a few days before I finally picked it up. It was still beautiful, but now it felt fragile, an empty shell, a symbol of a victory that had cost us all so much. I placed it in a box, then tucked it away in the attic, out of sight, out of mind. Some things, once broken, can never truly be put back together.